Good. Okay, Abai say we're going to learn tonight a sugya, which is not so much discussed so often. Dinim of koisher and matir, tying and knots and untying them on Shabbos. And it's negeya. Comes up, it's a negeya de kedin. And there's practical applications. Let's take a look. Page Taf Kuf Chav Gimel. Taf Kuf Chav Gimel. In order for us to get into it, we need to learn a little bit background. And the Alter Rebbe is going to give us some background at the beginning to the din. Page Taf Kuf Chav Gimel. Shin Yud Zayin Din Kshira V'Aniva B'Shabbos. HaKoyisher Matir, tying and untying, He Me'avos Malachis. It's one of the Lamites Malachis. Why? Shekem Mishkin HaYutzayadei Chilazim. In the Mishkin, those that were they used to capture the Chilazim fish, which is used for the dye, the Tchelas dye for the tzitzis. Koishin and Matirin B'Rish Zeseyan, they used to tie and untie their nets. Shekol Rishtes Asuis Ksharim Ksharim. All nets are made of knots. They're knotted at each point. Ve'in Kishrei Kayama, and they're kasha, which is meant to stay there. Upa'amim, forever. Upa'amim, there are times shetarich litel chutim eresh zu. Now, before we read Upa'amim, very good. So we know there was koisher. There was koisher in the Mishkan. Where do we find that they were matir in the Mishkan? That they untie everything you need to find. Ufa'amim shetzarich litel chutim eresh zu Elohai. You have to remove strings from one net and add it to another net to make it larger. Matir mikan, but koisher mikan. You untie it and tie it. So you find koisher and matir in the Mishkan. Uminat Torah, eini chayev ala kesher shel kayama. What does it mean, kesher shel kayama? Min ha-Torah, we're going to see some midrabanan. We're machmer midrabanan. What does it mean, min ha-Torah?
I don't see how this is for the Mishkan. Because it says it's
it wasn't fish. They would catch a fish that they
the tcheles they would use also in the Mishkan. It wasn't that we use it for our tzitzis.
It isn't only tzitzis. Oh, it's
tzitzis. It wasn't only tzitzis. It was kasha. It was for the Mishkan. They used to use it for the uriyas. For the skins.
Oh, for the skins.
It's for the strings in the Mishkan. Oh, you made the sky if you made a knot. We're not talking about over here in Sif Aleph. We're not going to discuss what type of knot. But any knot which you make, which is there to be niskayim la'olam, you're there to leave it to stay. You know plans of taking it out. The Hainu Shakoishrei al Dash Yishar King Coles Man Shaf Shavli's kind. It should remain there as long as it's possible for it to stay there. B'Coles Man Sheyitztarach Elatiroi. As long as you don't need it, you're going to leave it there. It could be possible something will come up and you'll have to untie it. It's possible. It's still called kesher shel kayama, even there's a possibility some event could come up and some reason you might want to untie it. As long as you didn't have in mind, after became hoyul kishakoishri, b'shas you tied it. Any koitzes man b'daite mosei atiranu. You don't set any time in your mind when you're going to open it. The ashes yishara came loyal, and maybe it will remain there forever. It's called a kesher shel kayama. As long as you don't have in mind, your plan is this is staying here for good. Yes, it's possible something will come up. I will need to use it if something will come up and I'll have no other string or I'll need to untie it. But in my mind, right now, my plan is staying here for good. That's called a kesher shel kayama.
The ma'isa, that's not true.
That's min ha-Torah.
Because there's kesher, the halacha calls kesher shel kayama any particular type of knot, and if it's not another particular type of knot, whatever your kavanah is, it's awesome.
We're going to discuss soon that kesher, that's min ha-Torah. We're starting off with the yisoidus, and where it was in the Mishkan, what it is min ha-Torah, and we're going to move on to midrabanan.
Mishkan, when they made the knots, you knew they would have taken
You
out.
can't look at them. They go
No, they were not going to take them out.
No, they knew they were taken out, but they were still constantly on the move.
Oh, so this is a good question. So the Gemara in Daf Ayin Daled in Shabbos says that Eina Chanami, we're not learning kosher from the knots that they did to tie the pegs. They tied the urias, the curtains to the pegs into the ground, because those taka they untied it constantly. So that's not a kesher shel kayama. We're learning kosher and matir from the knots they made on the urias. On the urias that never came out. The curtains and the urias, those stayed. That's what the Gemara says. Maybe to hold it on at the ending, yeah.
They didn't have wax to put it. They didn't put wax.
They held at the ending. They tied it up, to keep it on the urias. To keep. Rashi says clearly, actually, in the Mishnah in Klal Gadol, he says all these malachas over there, including kosher matir. He goes through a number of them. All of them have to do with the urias in the Mishkan. Right. The Gemara later on says it clearly.
They covered the Mizbeach, right? No, it will be wind. This will go off. So the bottom
but that's not what
that's not. But those were not kesher shel kayama, because those they planned on untying it when they're going to go on a trip. They knew that Hashem is telling them constantly to move, so they're going to have to tie it. So it says the Gemara says we cannot learn from there that kosher match. It's not a kesher shel kayama. Kesher shel kayama is the actual urias themselves, the actual skins that cover the Mishkan. Those knots that were part of those garments, for those material, those were there to stay forever.
Because I'm not an expert that it just seems to me that when you make cloth.
Not only that, when you toifer, when you sew, you're chayiv, you do two, I don't know what's called, two sewings, two tfiris, but you're not chayiv unless you make a knot at the ending. They had to hold together whatever they did that it shouldn't fall apart.
Okay, but I'm saying, but when you make a cloth, you weave it.
Right.
And you can't hold it together by applying knots on the edges. You have to make a selvage at the end. That's the way they do it.
I don't know the Metzias. I'm not a tailor, so I don't know. I'm just telling you what the Gemara says. We could open up the art school after Shir and take a look. I think it's Daf Ayin Daled. Now, now the second line from the bottom. If someone sets up in his mind a certain time, I'm going to take it off at this point. In a month from now, in a year from now, I'm going to untie it. You have a mind for 10 years. I'm keeping this here, but after 10 years, I'm untying it. Min ha-Torah, it's not considered kayama for good. Upater, bein al kshirase, bein al torase. Whether you're untying it, whether you're tying it, you're pater. Aval midivrei soifrin, midrabanan, nikris agam kesha kayama. That is also called kayama, and it's aser. Hoyel v'oimel l'skayim ezes man. It's here to stay for a certain amount of time. V'asa bein l'kayshe bein l'atire. It doesn't say yet what that time is. We're going to see further in the sif. It's a machlokes. It's a machlokes aposkim how much midrabanan. But here he just says in general, midrabanan it's also when it's there for a certain period of time. The period of time we'll see soon. On the other hand, if it's to the other extreme, it's not meant to stay at all. You want to write in the same day you made the knot, you plan on untying it. You have your clothing and your shoes. In the morning, you put them on. You tie them. In the evening, you take them off. You matter them. You're allowed to take them on the Shabbos. Meaning we have three levels. There is knots which are here forever, for good. Forever, it can't be forever. It's a material, it's going to fall apart, but you're leaving it there forever. Those are minat Torah, you're chayev for tying it, and you're chayev for matter it, for onani. The other extreme is a knot which is, you're there just for today. I'm tying it, but I'm going to untie it. You tie your shoelaces. You know you're going to untie it later. Or they had clothing then. You used to pull strings to tie it tighter and make tie it. You knew very soon you're going to untie it. So by these ksharim are no shail at all, even midrabanan.
Yeah, and even if they were meant for a long time, it's not chazak.
What do you mean? You're saying if you want to
It's
tie
not a
your
kesher
shoes,
shel chazak.
you
It's
can
very
put any type of kesher on shoes?
According to this shita, yes. We're going to
But
see
you're gonna
later
take
on.
them off that day.
I lived a lot of safe. It says it depends on what type you catch. Whatever.
The next sif we're going to see that if it's a kesher uman, if it's a craftsman's knot,
Yeah.
or we're going to see that we hold the halacha any knot which is tight, any tight knot, there's a shita, and we hold the halacha like that shita, that you're not allowed to make it even if you're going to untie it, you're planning on tying it that day. But the Vaila, we didn't hear about that shita. We're going to hear about next sif.
Even Vita, there's some knots. Even they say in order to do, you're going to untie. You have to do a very light knot.
One move.
To tie your tie. The shita says you better make sure you're going to untie that tie. Don't keep it tied.
I want to let you know, we're going to talk about tying, making a tie in Shabbos, and untying is ishta zay pashut.
Even though it comes out with one pull.
You need colors.
Right.
It comes out with one pull.
You need
Also a
pull.
shoelace. It comes out with one pull.
Yeah.
So some want a taina that a shoelace is different than a tie. A tie, we're jumping a little bit over here, but we'll jump. The shoelace, whichever way you're going to pull it, it's going to pull the bow out. The tie, one way you pull it, it tightens it. The other way it comes out. But the other people say it very easily slips out the other way.
It looks ugly when you tie it too much. So you're never gonna. If you make it too tight, it doesn't look. First of all, you won't be able to get it out, and you'll ruin the tie.
Good. But you have eine was kita kvetch. So l'maisa.
No one wants to do that to their tie.
Right, but
The ones that you get in serious.
the shayla zazoy. If someone's going to pull on the tie like
Clip
this,
on one
it's tight, Lapoyo. It's meaning even right now that you didn't
But you
tighten the
can get it
knot.
out with one kitch.
So that's the machlokes. The machlokes is how do we view the fact that you should pull it out easily like that, but on the other hand, the other way pulling it not. It's nicht pashut. Most people don't have the shayla because you usually make those people wear a tie, make it Erev Shabbos.
By the way,
And Friday night they take it off, they don't untie it, they just loosen it, and in the morning they just tighten it again. So they're not mamish redoing their tie.
Yeah, but it's not good to leave it tied up overnight.
I just said that.
You wanna. By the way, it's interesting. It's not called a knot. It's called a tie. If it was called it was meant to
Saying
be,
by a tie, it's called a
and
tie.
if it was meant to be there for a long time, they would call it a knot.
Well, that's because it's a bow tie. It's a bow tie with a
Like
tie.
garlic knots. When they make garlic knots, those are knots. They're never getting untied.
It's actually impossible.
But a tie is
You
getting
hear
untied.
what he's saying? There's two ways to make a tie.
Okay, so it's a tie. Make one-
He's saying that there's a derech to make it, but there's no way where you can't pull it out.
No, he's talking about the ones that you buy in Sears. Getting unglued. Oh, in Sears, that's for like the.
Okay, now boys say come.
So they make ties, you know.
Now, so the mice is,
Put in some hot water from it.
again, so we'll jump a little bit to what Shalom is bringing up, that Lamaisa, if it's a tie, if it's a knot, if it's a proper knot, then even if you're going to remove it that day, it's also to make it. But we'll see that later. The first sheet is not going to Mahal. Now, what is exactly the shear midrabanan? How long does it have to be for it to be problematic or not? Let's say you're talking about a knot which is not a tight knot, and how long is it considered a problem? Midrabanan, what's the shear of kayama? Two shitas. Let's take it out loud and then we'll read it inside. One shita is more machmer de kashita, which holds 1 day. If this knot is meant to stay here for 1 day, then you cannot. Then it's already considered keshel kayama. You're not allowed to tie it or untie it. 1 day, according to one shita. The second shita says 7 days. 7 days. So it means if you're planning on untying it within 7 days, it's not a keshel kayama. You're allowed to untie it on Shabbos, as long as it's not a ma'isa ummah. Now, what happens if you do it stam? What happens when you tie the knot? You're not. Who's the halacha like? First of all, who's the halacha like? The halacha is like the first opinion. One is supposed to be machmer. Like the first opinion, that one day, a knot for one day, one should not untie or tie. One day is already a problem. However, if someone really needs to make this knot or untie this knot, he's allowed to ask a guy to do it for him. Because remember, it's only an Issa D'Rabbanan.
Shvus to shvus.
Shvus to shvus, he's telling a guy shvus to shvus. And it's Tzarech Harbe, if you really need it, it's all Tzarech Gadol to do it. So whatever the inyan is, if you can't get your foot into your shoe, right? And it was so you have a Tzarech Gadol, so you have a hat.
You have sometimes
A guy, through a guy.
you have sometimes the shoe get like two knots, one
Right.
to the other, and it's stuck. It's like really hard to open it. Like
But if you're not mechavan, I thought if you're not mechavan as well.
I'll tell you, the shoes, be'emes is a bigger hat, or even you yourself could
The
untie.
word mechavan.
Oh. The shoes. Okay, Emino, let's, you know what, it's hard to discuss the practical applications till we get to a few
passed away,
dinners.
so he became
So we have a machlokes with the Rabbanan, whether, what is a kesha kiyam with the Rabbanan? Is it 7 days or 1 day? This applies to the Hatar also. You're only also to be matter it if it's there for a day or for 7 days. Halach, we have to map like the sheet of 1 day. What happens if you tied it, you didn't have in mind anything? You just tied it stam. You didn't think anything, you just tied it.
It goes like
Then-
what your normal covenant is.
So we say like this. If your derech always is to leave it for a day, because halacha we're going to day, then it's problematic. We go boss of the derech. But what happens if majority of the times you're going to leave for a day, but there is a percentage, a small percentage, that you're going to untie it within 24 hours, within a day, then we are going to make call and not consider a kesha kiyama, since you had a mind to stop. So if it's roiv, we're going to go boss of the miut. Since you only did it bestam, since sometimes you will untie it within a day, we're going to be matter you to untie.
Also, most
But what happens if you always, this is your derech, you always keep it for a day, and you did it bestam, we say, it's a kesha kayama, the Rabbanan, because you've done it for a day, even though you didn't have a mind, but that's the fact, what's going to happen. The same thing will be for the sheet of 7 days.
So you're saying
In the
even
sheet
if
of 7 days, same thing.
Even if the next morning he's going to untie, in other words, let's say he's too tired to unknot at night. He takes them off with the knot on, and then in the morning he's going to untie the knot so that he can get his feet back into the shoes. So we're saying that's a 24 hours, that's considered a 1 day knot.
No, because as long as he didn't have in mind, Shai is what he had in mind.
His mind is that he would prefer to untie it at night, but sometimes he kicks them off with them not tied.
Then it's not a kesha kayam.
Not a problem.
But we're saying even more. What happens if he didn't think anything?
Right, so then it goes, why does it go by what his preferences?
We don't go basa roiv over here. Since it's stam,
There's an umdana that he really wants to untie his shoes.
I don't know what the hezber is, but when it comes to this sugi, we don't go after roiv, majority. We only go if it's mamish the derech.
We don't even go by his umdana, what his stam kavana is?
Well, he himself sometimes unties it within a day.
Right.
He sometimes does it. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Not a problem. That's right. This is the shaila that comes up with shoes.
Is that why all these
We're tying shoes. When you tie a shoe in the morning,
Those funny shoes.
when you tie a shoe in the morning,
They don't tie the shoes,
Because of Shabbos?
but they tie the pants at the bottom.
you see the Alter Rebbe. I said before the lashon a day.
You're not going to get it
Alter Rebbe is a lashon a day. It's not clear from the Alter Rebbe what does it mean a day. He said a day and a night. What does it mean a day? Is it 24 hours?
Oh.
It's like,
The Prima Gadim, I saw quoted saying he held 24 hours. The Alter Rebbe never gave time limit. He said a day and a certain amount into the night. Not right away at night you're planning on tying it. A certain amount of the night you're going to keep it on. Which could be a shayla, mashal. In the morning shachar is Shabbos. You come out of the mikveh or you get up in the morning, you tie your shoes. You're planning keeping them on till late at night, 12 o'clock at night. You have a malka, whatever it is. So now, if you're, that's what you always do. You always keep your shoes on until then, and that's what you have in mind. You have your problem over here. If you want to untie that now on Shabbos, now later on you decide to change your mind, so what's the answer?
Good to
We're
sleep.
talking
during
about an easy tie, a bow tie.
Even a bow tie. This we're going to learn with Shem later. Even a bow tie.
But you don't make. You come ready made.
Remember, we're going to see soon. The whole concept that a knot has a certain definition to it is not l'chol hadayis. There's certain days to say it does not make a difference what type of knot it is, what type of tie you made. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference as long as it can hold together. As long as it can hold together. It's not just he took two strings and gave it one next to each other and one time. It's not going to hold. But if there's a sheet that which holds, and we hold this way, we're machmer like the sheet also. It's not totally what type of knot.
Wow.
If you're there to be a kesher shel kayama, as long as the knot can hold, so it's a sustainable knot, a bow tie, whatever it is, it's problematic.
Wow.
The fizeh, and since we also pass them like the day, that one day is enough to make a kesher shel kayama. So if you're a person who always puts on his shoes in the morning and does not take any nap Shabbos day, not kick off his shoes in the couch, you're a very yekka guy, you don't do any of that stuff. Your shoes are on it until late that night, before you go to bed, your shoes are on. You might have a shaila, according to Rebbe, then maybe it's a kesher kiyam. L'maisa is that most people sometimes take off their shoes for a nap, or they take off the shoes, they want to go on the couch and they take off their shoes. So therefore, even if when you usually tie your shoes in the morning in the mikveh, you don't have anything in mind. It's called stam. Remember, when it comes to stam, we don't go after roiv. We don't go, even the majority of the time, they don't untie my shoes till late at night. We don't go busters roiv by stam. We look after the miut. And sometimes you'll take a nap, sometimes you'll take it off. So the type of shoes and the knots that are in for category of shoes are not an issue. That's why they wouldn't be an issue.
How about the Hasidim don't wear? I'm sorry.
How about the shoes has like a glue? You put it up to the other.
Velcro.
Whatever you call it. Sometimes when you take it out, you want to make it tighter. Move it more.
It's a good kasha. It's a good kasha.
So this is not an issue of kosher matter because no knot there, but it's an issue of toifer. Toifer and kedeya. Is this considered a form of something like glue? You're not allowed to glue or tape something to each other. Is Velcro a problem? The Rebbe had a tshuva on Velcro. The Rebbe doesn't have a tshuva on Velcro, but he has a tshuva about toifer and kedeya. And the Rebbe learns that toifer and kedeya, sewing and ripping, is only shaykh when there's three items here. You have two pieces of paper with glue or tape bringing it together. When you have Velcro, which is only two pieces, two items, it doesn't go into the gather of toifer and kedeya. What do we do? Normal sewing is you have two parts of a garment and you sew it together with the davar hashlishi hamachaber beineim, which pulls them together. But ma'aseh with Velcro, you don't have that. This is the Rebbe's mahalich, how the Rebbe explains. Actually, a lot of the poskim struggle with Velcro, saying the hain to get shuvas. They struggle with the heterim of Velcro. The ma'aseh, the oilams will make of Velcro, but they struggle with what's the explanation. But the Rebbe has very nicely said, which he proves and everything. Toif and Koreh is only shaykh when you have three items. You're taking two things with a third thing together. Automatically, he doesn't speak about Velcro, but based on that you saw Velcro is not a shayla.
What if you have a sukkah?
But it's not connected to kosher matter.
What about a sukkah?
It's not connected to kosher matter. It's a sugi of toifer kereya. The malach of kosher matter is the only one that's a knot.
Right.
A knot could be on one string itself, by the way. You take one string and make a knot on it. It has nothing to do with...
Like people do with the garbage. They think that you're allowed to make a knot with the garbage. You're not allowed to make a knot with the garbage.
No. That knot's there to stay.
So much.
It's going to stay there for over a day.
Tell them all the time, don't make a knot with the garbage.
Not you can't make garbage. What you could do with the garbage...
Twist it around. Just hold it.
I'll tell you the emes.
No, get the thing that has the thing, the red thing.
You could pull it around one time. Emes is I'm thinking now, Pasha thinking during the shear, that even a bow tie could be problematic.
Right, garbage.
Because Hayois, your plan is that's going to
That should
stay.
stay forever, right?
It's going to stay there. I don't want to say it's mamish min Torah. Maybe I don't know what they do in the garbage though. What does it do in the garbage?
Wait a
dump
second.
over there?
According to the Rebbe's Sfar, it's like Velcro. Because
Could even be a shiloh min Torah, maybe.
no, according to the Rebbe, it's like Velcro because you're bringing together the same
No,
garment.
but kosher matter that had to evoke only toy for Korea. Kosher matter, you made a knot, it's not going to help.
Where do you get the
Later on the simon, a little bit will bring in toy for Korea, but it's separate.
where do you get the shear of 187?
Look right here. Let's take a look now. Fourth line. Let's learn a little bit inside. We spoke some of this outside. Avon who bedayt shetim yoyim, if someone does not have a mind to untie it during that day. Kegoyim, for example, Tamidei Chachamim shaloim d'maleiles, Tamidei Chacham which learn at night. Ve'enim chultz min aleihem v'lei peishol shem alei. They don't put on pajamas at night and they don't take off their shoes. Asurim l'kashim b'sham b'shachis bedayt shetim lav. They plan on Matzoi Shabbos, staying up a whole night and learning. You have a problem over here. When they tie their shoes or their clothing Shabbos in the morning, it's going to stay there for a day. A night and a day. Also, it's also to untie it on Shabbos. When? If during one of the days in the week they put it on, without a mind to take it off, with in mind not to remove it the night afterwards, then it was there for a day. It's a Archeological Rabbanim. So then you already have a problem untying it on Shabbos. And what happens if you don't have a mind at all when they tie it? They stand put it on without anything in mind. They didn't think, I'm tying this now and it's staying there for the night. Then you could tie it on Shabbos. Even let's say L'Poyel Mamash, they don't untie it till late at night. They had a mind to untie it, but L'Poyel they didn't. L'Poyel, they kept it on.
Wait a second, don't they go to the mikveh, these guys?
Batal Tefillah says it wasn't his battle. These Talmidei Chacham didn't.
It was out of order.
I think he was talking about before this was written for the Mishnah.
It was Litvisha. So L'maisa, the Baal Shem Tov was the one who brought by the Hamoyin Am, brought into the general population the concept of going very often to the mikveh. There were definitely tzaddikim and tzaddikim and chassidim. I mean, like old style chassidim that would go to the mikveh. For sure, Tfilas Ezra was a special chomer, Medivir Kabbalah, and no shayla about it. But the concept of going very often to the mikveh became more popular. Baal Shem Tov made it, popularized it. It was around, but it was more of a wasn't nachas haklal. Wasn't nachas haklal. Talmidei Chacham lav dafka means tzaddikim and chassidim. Talmidei Chacham. Even though Poel Mamish did not stay there for a day, a full day, but we don't care about the Poel Mamish. Hoyel b'shas hakshira, at the time when they tied it, it wasn't for sure that they're not going to untie it Matzah Shabbos. Because sometimes, even Talmidei Chachamim take care of the shoes at night before they go to sleep. So therefore, wouldn't be a problem. This is all about tying the knot. So to untie the knot on Shabbos in kosher v'stam. If they tie it stam, afilu kosher if Shabbos ma meruba. The time Sunday, early on the week, Sunday they tied it v'stam without any machshava, and it stayed there for a whole week. Let's say you think it stayed there for a whole week. It's mamash akashak liyamad rabbanan. Says no. And yois that they did not have a mind when you tied it goes basa the das. Only in one case we don't go basa your das. Those knots which the derech is to always keep it, stay there. In you never remove it for a day. It's always there for over a day. Also, l'koyshim b'Shabbos afilu stam elatir. Then, even though it's stam, it's not going to help you. This is the first shita that the more machmerdik shita, which we're going to say soon, is the ikar halacha. That a knot which is there for a full day is considered kesher kiyama d'rabbanan. However, Yeshoimrim, the shita of the broad in the Ramah, shekol kesher she'ein yom l'skayim zam is ein yom and kesher kiyama. It has to be 7 days. I feel with the soifer. Even with the Rabbanan, it's not a problem if it's under 7 days. I feel even if majority of the times you're going to leave it for 7 days, sometimes you untie it within the 7. Majority of the time they don't untie their shoes and their clothing only from Shabbos to Shabbos for a full 7 days. They normally, the Roiv Apam, the Talmidei Chacham, keep their knots for 7 days. They kept their shoes on for 7 days straight. However, sometimes they untie during the 7 days for whatever reason. Since it's bestam, it doesn't say kul over here. But look, in this case, talking when the Talmidei Chacham tied it bestam. So when it's bestam, we go after the miut. The miut has man. Will untie it within the 7 days. It's possible. Therefore, it's not considered kesher kiyama. Only if you had in mind to not untie it till after Zayin days, then it's mamish kesher kiyama. Aval koishin stam. If someone ties it stam, and kesher kiyama looking darky la'oil and l'kaim shivasiyam. If you tie it stam without any machshava, it's not called kiyama unless you always leave it that way for 7 days. They had shirts. They wore these shirts for 7 days, and they had these strings that went through the shirts that tied them on.
The Flintstones, they have, if you ever saw. No, really, they have the cartoon, they have the Barney and thing, they have the knot on them.
So I'll have to look at the Cocoa Pebble box to see.
Yeah, that's right. I
don't want that in my house, but we gotta look.
Well, it's under okay. It's okay.
Not the hechsher, but the sugar.
Well, sugar bombs. I actually want a free T-shirt from collecting on top.
And he cashed in on it. This is a double knot.
Well, I wanted to.
It's a vintage cereal, right?
How's it? It goes around for.
It's made out of pebbles, so it's lasting a long
I
time.
already bought the cocoa. Actually. But I want to.
I just want to know what you cocoa for cocoa when he was a kid. He bought a shirt.
And you really have a cashier for the cereal.
I'm just shy. You're talking about years. You have to take the dinner, taking a bath, and washing. How's it shy to have over 7 days?
Kept the shirt together with a string.
I don't know.
Cut up to the
Good
top.
shayla. I don't know what shayla. I think it's Thomas Manak Gemara. You understand the concepts of hygiene are very different with Chol Dor V'Dor. Amal they talk once a week, once in a while. You know, there's a whole different dinim when it comes to a lady going to tell about chatzitzis. Women don't have, unless it's a chashon medical condition, like showers. Women, Amal, the shtega was, they didn't shower. All these things, there was no showers. You had to go to a bathhouse and pay for it. You go to the bath. Everything was very different. Not only that, they didn't Bechlal see it was like there was a need to do it.
Right.
Not only that, they might have held, and maybe today there's certain sheets that hold that way too. That's good to leave on the oil.
Yeah, there was sheets which held.
Maybe in Rome, I think it
They
was
came by the plague. The reason why
Pants with silver
they
on the
washed
side.
more than
once a week. You went Shabbos, Shabbos. Went to America.
I didn't tell us it died some other
Sleeping about
things.
it. How do you find with that?
Even Avram Vino, they came. They Zara. Let me wash your hands. Let me wash.
They haven't understand the concept of tissues is a recent concept.
Yeah.
They never had tissues.
Well, they had handkerchiefs.
Let's not discuss what they did in the Zman Gemara. They had pebbles.
If they didn't have handkerchiefs, like he's right. I mean, they had
If you're rich.
wipes were like, you know.
I spoke to people from Russia. What did they do? What did they have in Russia? There was no tissues. No tissues. They were lucky. If they were lucky, they had a newspaper. They were lucky. They had a newspaper. life was so different. You know, there was no air conditioning. Could you imagine that? No one can imagine how do you live without air conditioning.
I could. When I was
Times
first-
change. Your comfort makes us think differently. We can't think how they survived without air conditioning. How did they go in the midbar for 40 years without air conditioning?
No, nowadays, how do you go to
They had that
camp?
non-air
How do you
covered,
go
so
to
there must have been some.
Yeah.
And non-air covered.
That was temperature control.
There was some wasn't able to go through with.
Temperature control.
Yeah, so the Abishter had them on a box and he was setting every temperature.
We
No,
cannot
I didn't.
complain our
Nowadays, they
life.
have air conditioners. That's right.
Oh, in the bunk? They
Yeah.
have air conditioning?
How did they survive without a refrigerator? You understand?
No, but now,
But now they all
now most of the family have air conditioners.
When I was in when I went to Russia, we had a camp there. We couldn't eat any of the food there. Why? They don't know what refrigeration is like. A very special thing. Most things you leave it out. You know. We used to at night. We couldn't eat any of their food. We would vomit. We couldn't eat the food. The kids there was fine. Their stomachs were used to it. The stomachs were used to eating food that sat out. It wasn't like our stomachs. You become sensitive. They were tough. We made. I remember we would only make at night after all the campers went to sleep. We make ourselves some food. A whole day we'd starve. We nibble on something. There was nothing to eat. We couldn't eat any of the camp food. It was like Shabbos Batamos, so we had to make ourselves some food. So we made ourselves some chicken. There was some leftovers. Then, anyways, a few days later, we went to the pantry in the camp to see what they have over there. Some food we can nibble on. We open up like a pot over there. We see our chicken sitting there for 3 days in the pantry. What's the big deal? It's a little cold pantry. They had no problem with that. I don't know if they would eat it. There would be any problem. But for us, that's like whoa.
Bacteria.
They're eating every meal. The Russians have chai. They have hot drinks. All the meals is hot drink. Every single kid, 5-year-old kid is served this glass of tea, hot tea, for breakfast, lunch, and supper. That's the drink. It's called chai and has the leaves like it used to be in Mall. There was no tea bags. Maybe some of you remember that. I don't know, but it was little tea leaves all in the bottom. That's called chai. That's what they drink 3 times a day.
Forest.
Every kid gets a glass of chai and tea. We can relate to the lifestyle of different countries, different climates, different periods in history. People can relate to different things and survive different ways.
You know, if you go down.
Now we can't survive without air conditioning. Some person won't have air conditioning. Who knows what will be? Then they were able to weather it. That's what does. We all became together istanis. What it says in the Gemara. We're all istanis. Orach, onig. You know, it says in the Shulchan Aruch, mamash 9 days, no showers. You know, today people are istanis. You know.
9 hours you can't go down.
Don't kid yourself. Before I had air conditioning as a kid, my mother used to have to put the pillowcase in the freezer. Okay.
You had a freezer.
I couldn't take it. Yeah, you had a freezer.
Yeah. Anyways, Lamaisa. It's important to hear about the history and to hear what was Amol. So
Like
you know,
even today, there are people without refrigeration. Well, they said there's 1 billion humans on the planet that still don't have
Fresh,
sanitation,
well, fresh water. They don't
fresh
have
water. Over
Yeah,
a
to-
billion human beings.
Ugh.
you know that most of we're living here in our own box. We're living in our bubble. I'm sure, like in places Indians play, they're Pasha no contact with society. There's nothing there. I can only say what I saw in Russia, but Russia's nothing compared to other countries. But you go out in Russia, they like to show you the pictures, Moscow, Petersburg, big cities. They look all nice, but there's little shtetlich out there that are an hour or 2 drive from Moscow that have no running water and they're still going to the well. You think you have to read the stories about the Shem Tev,
Really?
the Vilna Gaon. You think you have to read a storybook about it. You just go to these towns and the time stops the exact same way. They're still going. When we went to the village of Lubavitch, I don't know what's today. Maybe they got fancy. They have running water. Maybe the shluchim that went there now arranged for the running water. But they push it. When we came out of the oil, we wanted to wash our hands. The old babushka, the old lady, went like the old Wasserträgers and went to go bring us water from the well. That's what she did. And we gave her $1, whatever it is, and she was mamish like $1. You know, you could buy the whole Lubavitch with $1. So this was like, and the fire was, there was no heating. The fire was pushed firewood. So the only thing that they did have was a lot of the houses had electricity. They had like a light bulb, like one light bulb or something. But that was about it, and not everyone. And there was only one phone in the entire city. In the post office, they had a telephone.
How long ago was this?
We're talking
Right
about
before the-
15 years ago.
right before-
I don't know
right
if
before
these
the
past 15 years, and there could be have worse shtetlich there. There could be worse shtetl there. I'm just saying an example of one shtetl that I was in. It's still going on. So you don't have to just read a book about it. They're still carrying the same vasset. They're still doing the same life. The horse and buggy are still going down the street. That's what they do. They pick you up with a horse and buggy and they take you around town.
I don't get a ticket.
Even now you do it. Now some have cars, some have horse and buggy. There was probably a majority still have horse and buggy.
You don't even have to ask about the lights.
No, there's no street lights or anything. Don't get me wrong. There's no street lights. There's no nothing. Forget about it. Not some houses are zoiche to have a light bulb. The
Nope.
zoiche to have a light bulb.
For sure, no fridges.
Nothing. The fridge. That's like 2,100.
How do they keep the food fresh?
But they don't have.
They keep the way fresh that they kept it. How do they keep it fresh?
They still eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and they go down below. They have like these
Cellars.
cellars.
Root cellar.
That's halacha says. That's what halacha talks about. For Shabbos.
The Rishonim discuss how they had ice in the summertime. They had deep cellars. They went all they dug down and they kept the ice there. They kept the cold.
Yeah, the fruit.
They managed to have in the summertime ice cubes. Certain
lot of the
people.
fruit-
Obviously the rich only had that, but you know, if you go down in the cellar somewhere, they had ice and you get a delivery of ice.
From Siberia. From Siberia.
No, he was talking about that they had ice in the cellars.
No, but where did it? Who produced it?
No, during the winter they stored
Oh, they
ice
stored
down
it.
there.
Yeah, they probably like had a big room, and then they made a thing. They chiseled into the room, and they just kept melting the outside.
Saying you only need to take a video of the lifestyle there, and you have a video of 300 years ago. It's not like you don't need to read. Let's finish off the Sifra,
Well,
what you say?
probably since the Jews left, it became more backwards.
Seems like the Shluchim now, they had a tremendous Kiddush Shluchim there. It was a very famous historical event just now. 500 Shluchim of Europe had the Kiddush Shluchim in Russia. And this happened 25 years ago. The Rebbe said in 1991, the Rebbe wanted the European Shluchim to all have their Kiddush by the Kvarim of the Rebbeim in Russia and Ukraine. They went around traveling all around to all the Kvarim in Russia, and the starting of the Kiddush should be in Lubavitch, in the original Lubavitch, city of Lubavitch, by the caver of the Tzemach Tzedek and the Marash. For Ma'aseh then, the Rebbe said they should also go to the towns where the Alter Rebbe lived in. The Alter Rebbe lived in Liozna, and later on, after his second imprisonment, he was released on condition he doesn't go to Liozna, he goes to Liadi. So the rest of his life he spent in Liadi. The Alter Rebbe is not buried there. There's no tzaddik in there. The Rebbe is buried in Haditch when he was running away from Napoleon. But the Rebbe wanted, there's nothing there. The Rebbe wanted they should go to Liozna Liadi to visit it. Then it were 25 years ago, they weren't able to visit it. There was technical reasons. They didn't make it there. Now 25 years later, they started to redo and make up what they missed then. The Rebbe wanted them to go, so let's make the Kiddush HaShluchim 25 years later back in Russia, the same schedule. We're going to go to all the Kvarim, and now we're going to go to Liozna Liadi. So that's Kacha Ma'aseh Shahayim. Right. L'Poyel, they all came up with their buses to the border of Belarus. Russia and Belarus. No, Russia and Belarus. The Alter Rebbe lived in Belarus, which is White Russia. Minsk is the capital over there. They rode to the border. They didn't want to let them in. They had to wait there for a while till the Tsar contacted Putin's deputy and took them to, and he made a call over there, and then they got themselves in.
All they had to do was give them a refrigerator. They would have let them in.
And enough electricity.
Well, yeah, it's a very pretty amazing thing, but it seems like that they redid Lubavitch, with the city of Lubavitch for them. They somehow brought them food there, and they redid the...
They had heard. Why did they go to the? When they got into Liozna, did they find the house that the Alter Rebbe lived in, where Napoleon got to after he ran away?
Yeah, but they burned that house.
Do they know which one that is? He burnt the house.
They burnt the house
Okay,
because
so they
Napoleon wouldn't.
So they should do
We
it.
don't
They should
know.
do an archaeological dig. Maybe
We
they'll
don't
find
know.
the
The
slippers.
Alter Rebbe himself
No, we
said
know in
burn every
Lubavitch-
single thing down.
Okay, so
In
maybe they should
Lubavitch-
do an archaeological dig over there.
In Lubavitch, we know exactly where we have maps. We know exactly where the original chutzner of the Rebbeim was.
Right.
They bought it.
I'm talking about
They bought it. They
Liozna
built
and
a
Liadi.
whole.
We know where the Alter Rebbe lived in Liozna and Liadi.
Maybe they could find the spot.
You want to know where Napoleon?
They could.
ran?
The Russians kept very. They
We do a
found.
reenactment like they do in Williamsburg, Virginia. We'll make a whole
The
thing.
Russians
We'll have
kept very
Napoleon
good
and make a lot of
records.
money.
There's very good records where they were able to find the Baal Shem Tov's tax papers.
What?
His tax papers, you know, tax season. They were able to find the Baal Shem Tov's tax papers.
Wow.
The Russian, listen, you know now we have the documents. 15 years ago it was discovered. 50 years ago was discovered was discovered. The Alter Rebbe.
See,
The Alter
this is
Rebbe
Hashem.
is.
See how happy that you didn't get?
The Alter Rebbe was imprisoned by the Tsar, right? We're talking about 250. No, 200 years ago. Over 200 years ago. They managed to find 50 years ago the original documents of the files of the Alter Rebbe's imprisonment, about him, his prison file. In there, they found his mamish, his holy handwriting, where he answered to all the questions that they asked him about what is Chassidus, what is the whole kind, what are you here to do? And he wrote it in Lashon Kodesh, and it was translated into Russian. They found the actual tshuvas, and they were published. The tshuvas were published. Ksadiat Kocher explained in simple pashut, simple for a guy, what is this movement about? Not much for a guy. What is davening? What is the concept of a Rebbe? Explain what are you collecting pidyon for? Why are you sending it to Turkey? The Malshinis was they sending it to Turkey. Eretz Yisrael was under the reign of Turkey. Ottoman Empire was in Tsar Russia. We're not friends.
The bear in the Turkey is still.
Not only that, they found the Alter Rebbe's son, the Mitzvah Rebbe, was also put into prison. Found all of his documents, and actually a whole book was made publishing that. All these documents now are found. The Russians were very meticulous. All their atrocities were kept clear. You know, Rabbi Mrazov, the Rabbi over here, his Zayda was shot and killed by the communists one night. They did not know what night he was killed. He was taken into jail a certain night, and he was in prison. They never saw him again. Later on, they knew he was killed, but they didn't know when, what night. Lamaisa, now, just very recently, a year or two ago, some of his family members went to Russia, went to the KGB offices, and now they released these things.
Really?
And they opened up things, and they said, on this night, he was killed. A whole bunch of other communist enemies that night.
What year was it?
And they know where the area where all the communists had dumped them all in the forest, a certain area, a certain huge area, and that area is now gated off, where family could come. It's just the area, but no one knows where in this spot over here, and this is where they're buried. And there were other Hasidim that were buried in that spot that were shot and killed. They keep good records.
You know what year this shit?
Which thing? The story?
Rabbi Marazin?
I think it's 28.
28, yeah.
1928?
No. 36, 37, 38 makes sense. Yeah, 30s. The later 30s were the worst years for Chassidim. Actually, the year 1938 in Lashon Kodesh is wrote as Tavrei Sadik Ches, which if you read it is Tirtzach, the year of killing. Chassidim called that year Tirtzach because many Chassidim were shot and killed that year. And we should only know good things. Let's finish up the last line. L'inyan halacha, we have two shittas. What's considered kashkiyam min derabanan? Min Torah, it's only when it's there la'olam. You're leaving there for good. Min derabanan machloikis 1 day, 7 days. L'inyan halacha yishlahach mikisvar yishayna. One should be mach like the first opinion that it has. If it's there for 1 day, it's already considered a kashkiyam. Elim kain tzarach harbi lakach. If one needs to, has a great need, you can ask a guy to tie or untie a knot and rely on the opinion that a knot is only a knot, shal kayama, if it's there for 7 days.
Where did they get the one in the 7th?